Small brown birds are common in gardens, but how do you know if these sparrows are house sparrow or tree sparrow? And in harsh winter weather you may find other brown sparrow-like birds visiting. What are they? First, you have to be certain that you are looking at a sparrow. Are you sure it isn't a dunnock? A small brown, grey-headed mouse-like bird that, despite its old name of hedge sparrow, is not even closely related. Its main defining feature is the thin, insect-eating beak, completely different from the heavy seed-eating beaks of the sparrows. Is it a female chaffinch? Although these have a heavier bill than dunnock, the dull brown female chaffinches are recognisable by their extensive white wing markings, noticeable both on the ground and very obvious in flight. On top of this, female chaffinches have plain, unstreaked brown backs. Both sparrows have marked backs. So, we've decided that we are looking at a sparrow, but which one is it? We sometimes get reports of tree sparrows identified as such because they were sitting in a tree. Obviously, this is not the way to tell the two species apart. We have to rely on plumage details. House sparrow is found pretty much across the whole of the UK and Ireland, including the islands, absent only from the highest mountains. If you see a dull, brown, female-like sparrow lacking any obvious coloured cap or throat patch, you can assume it is a house sparrow, as both sexes of tree sparrow have identical plumage. All sparrows are stout, dumpy, familiar birds with short legs and cheeky personalities, and they're frequently encountered in groups in gardens. Male house sparrows are very well-known birds, with brown striped backs, dusky grey cheeks and underparts, and black mask through the eyes and a black throat and upper chest. The crown of the head is grey. Tree sparrows are found locally across the UK and Ireland, although in some areas, such as northern Cumbria and North Yorkshire, they are locally common and may even be the common garden sparrow. They are ever so slightly smaller and slimmer than house sparrow, which gives them a slightly more dapper, less dumpy look. Many field guides highlight the rich brown cap and the black cheek spots as the two best identification features, but sometimes these are not as obvious as books suggest. Male house sparrows often fluff out their crown feathers so that the brown sides obscure the distinctive grey top. Although the black cheek spots of tree sparrow is more obvious, in poor views or with young birds or viewing at odd angles, they're not always clear. Tree sparrows are much cleaner looking, with a buff belly and shining white cheeks. For me, often the most obvious characteristic, and the first impression I pick up with tree sparrow, is the shining white collar right around the sides and the back of the head. House sparrows only really have a tiny white tick behind the eye and white in the cheeks, but even here it is a bit grubby looking. Underneath they are fairly grey and again grubby looking, and in addition their black bibs are messy and extensive, whereas tree sparrows have a very small, neat bib. So, to recap, if it has female-like plumage, it is a house sparrow. If it has a chestnut cap and clear white collar, it's a tree sparrow. As soon as the weather turns cold, with snow on the ground or hard frosts, we start getting reports of unfamiliar brown sparrow-like birds coming into gardens. On further investigation, these almost always turn out to be reed buntings. A winter reed bunting is a very different bird to the handsome black-headed, white-moustached bird often illustrated in field guides. The time when reed buntings are most likely to visit gardens coincides with when they are at their dullest and most sparrow-like plumage-wise. Reed buntings are a similar size to sparrows, although they seem larger due to their different proportions. They have slighter bodies and longer tails. They are frequently seen on the ground, sitting in shrubs, or joining other birds on bird tables. Although predominantly brown, reed buntings appear more stripy than sparrows, with distinct dark and light stripes on their back, a buff head with dark stripes, leaving an obvious pale eye stripe and a very pale moustachial stripe. The underneath is whitish buff, but with heavy streaking on the chest and flanks. Remember, both sparrows are virtually plain beneath. As the winter progresses towards spring, the males begin to acquire their striking breeding plumage, leading to a ghost of the black head and white moustache becoming increasingly obvious, whilst the females retain the brown, black and buff stripiness.